can make a way. Hey, hey. So humble yourselves and pray and guard His Torah. Obey each day. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hoshiana, Hoshiana. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
And Moshe said, Hear, O Yisrael, Yahweh your Elohim, Yahweh is one, and you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I'm commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way, when you lie down and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom to everyone worshiping with us at home. It's a privilege to have you visiting with us today, and we're glad you're there. So as we have our third and final part of our series on the armor of Elohim, the name of the message today is called Swashbucklers for Yahweh. Now, do any of you know what a swashbuckler is? All right. Does the word make you think of a pirate? All right. Do you somehow associate a swashbuckler with a buccaneer? All right. When you hear the word buccaneer, do you think of a pirate? It's a legitimate association to put buccaneer with a pirate because that's what they called pirates that would raid Spanish colonies and ships along the American coast during the 17th century. But I'll bet you don't know where the word buccaneer comes from and what it means. It comes from the French word pronounced boucanier. If I've got that right, I don't speak French. All right. It is French for a word that literally means barbecuer. Or one who smokes meat, and it's related to the word bacon. Buccaneer, bacon, bucanier. Which is what? Well, typically it's meat from the backs and sides of pigs. There's a reason for that too, which is dried, salted, and usually smoked. So I presume that the word buccaneer was terrorizing with regards to what they would do should they happen to come pay you a visit at your ship or your colony. Idiomatically, they were going to barbecue the inhabitants and take what they wanted. But that's where buccaneer came from, and that is what it means. You don't ever know what you're going to learn coming here and sit down, do you? See? Yahweh's going to be a buccaneer of sorts to the devil. It says in Revelation 20:10, you don't have to turn there, just one verse. And the devil who led them astray was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur where the beast and false prophet are, and they shall be tortured day and night forever and ever. So he's going to smoke the devil's meat. Amen and hallelujah. All right. But back to the word swashbuckler. Do you know what it means? The word swashbuckler really has nothing to do with the word buccaneer, and it does not mean barbecuer. Though the word has come to be associated with the swaggering, adventurous, fighting men types, the word which comes from the mid-1500s, according to the World Dictionary, comes from swash. Okay, and that is in the archaic sense to make the noise of a sword striking a shield. And buckler, plus buckler, right? Now, some dictionaries reference the word swoosh and swish, and if you haven't heard that sound in person, I bet Lucas has, all right? But if you haven't heard that sound in person, you've certainly heard it in the movies, all right? But what is a buckler? What does that have to do with our study, and why would you even look that up, Stan? Well, while studying the complete armor of Elohim, when I looked up the definition for the Hebrew word for shield, I found this definition in Strong's. The word is magen and maginah. And it says, a shield, that is the small one, or buckler. There's that word. Figuratively, a protector, also especially scaly hide of the crocodile, and then it gives the idioms. And Brown Driver's Briggs says a shield, comma, buckler. So I looked up the word buckler in my 1828 Webster's Dictionary on my eSword. And this is what it said. A kind of shield, a piece of defensive armor anciently used in war. It was composed of wood or wickers woven together, covered with skin or leather, fortified with plates of brass or other metal, and worn on the left arm. On the middle was an umbo, boss, or prominence, very useful in causing stones and darts to glance off. The buckler often was 4 feet long and covered the whole body. All right. Modern dictionaries define it as shield also. Okay, so in the original sense, a swashbuckler was one who fought with what? A sword and a shield. All right. And I thought that was interesting that it said the buckler was often 4 feet long and covered the whole body, especially since we discovered that the complete armor of Elohim consists of 6 pieces of armor, 5 of which are defensive. And they protect you from head to toe. All right? With only one piece of offensive equipment in the armament. But today, as we put on the complete armor of Elohim, we will pick up the shield of belief and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Elohim. And in one sense, anyway, we are to be Yahweh's swashbucklers. Remember, as we read today, that we started with the head and we worked our way down to the feet, and we will arm our hands today. Okay, so let's turn to Ephesians chapter 6. And we're going to start reading in verse 11. I'll be reading from the 1998 ISR translation, and we're going to be on page 1136. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 11. And it says, put on the complete armor of Elohim for you to have the power to stand against the schemes of the devil. I can't stress this enough. The schemes of the devil, though they may be right in your face, they tend to be crafty and cunning and subtle. I don't care who you are. He did it with Adam and Hawa, who I'll just bet you had a closer relationship with Yahweh than you or I. And he tried it on Yeshua too. And if you don't think Satan is working schemes against you in your life in order to put distance between you and Yahweh, you're sorely mistaken and you've already taken the bait. Put on the complete armor of Elohim for you to have the power to stand against the schemes of the devil, verse 12, because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, against world rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual matters of wickedness in the heavenlies. Because of this, take up the complete armor of Elohim so that you have the power to withstand in the wicked day, and having done all to stand. Stand then, having girded your waist with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having fitted your feet with the preparation of the good news of peace. And by the way, when the feet come fitted with the good news of peace, sometimes it has a way of stepping on people's toes. All right? But here we go. What are these next two words? Above all. Above all. Above all. Having taken up the shield of belief, with which you will have the power to quench all the burning arrows of the wicked one. Take also the helmet of deliverance and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Elohim, praying at all times with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, watching in all perseverance and supplication for all the set-apart ones. Also for me, that a word might be given to me in the opening of my mouth to be bold in making known the secret of the good news. What does belief mean? Does it simply mean I consider something to be true in my mind? Is that the total of belief? No, not according to what we find in the Scripture here. If you believe, then you will act like you believe, not just blah, blah, blah with your lips. All right? Yahweh loves praise from His people. Look at Hosea chapter 14. You don't have to keep your place yet there. Hosea 14 is going to be on page 606. Hosea chapter 14, we're going to start reading verse 1. And it says, O Yisrael, return to Yahweh your Elohim, for you have stumbled by your crookedness. Take words with you and return to Yahweh. Say to Him, take away all crookedness and accept what is good, and we render the bulls of our lips. In other words, offerings of praise. But note well, the bulls of your lips is not the same thing as bull from your lips. Amen. All right. Yahweh does not want mere lip service. Look at Matthew 15. Matthew 15. We're going to start on verse 7. We're going to be on page 934. This is where the scribes and the Pharisees came and asked Yahshua, why did His taught ones not eat why did they eat with unwashed hands? In verse 7 he says, Matthew 15, hypocrites, YHWH, that's Isaiah, rightly prophesied about you, saying, this people draw near to me with their mouth and respect me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain do they worship me, teaching as teachings the commands of men. I don't get charged with that. Right. The shield of belief means walking in compliance with Yahweh's laws, but belief is not simply obeying, but obeying because we believe. All right. Belief equals obedience. Disobedience equals unbelief. When we disobey, we are actually demonstrating by our actions that we really don't believe that Yahweh indeed is sovereign over us and over our lives. Belief equals obedience. Disobedience equals unbelief. Well, can you prove that, Stan? Well, I can show you what it says in the Scripture. So let's see if that does it for you. Hebrews chapter 3. Going to be on page 1163. We're going to start reading verse 1. Page 1163 and Hebrews 3. Therefore, set apart brothers, partakers of the heavenly calling, closely consider the emissary and high priest of our confession, Messiah Yahshua, who was trustworthy to Him who appointed Him, as also Moshe in all his house. For this one has been deemed worthy of more esteem than Moshe, so much as he who built the house enjoys more respect than the house. For every house is built by someone, but he who built all is Elohim. And Moshe indeed was trustworthy in all his house as a servant for a witness of what would be spoken later. But Messiah as a son over his own house, whose house we are if we hold fast the boldness and the boasting of the expectation firm to the end. Therefore, as the set-apart Spirit says, today, if you hear His voice, do not harden your hearts as in the rebellion and the days of trial in the wilderness, where your fathers tried me, proved me, and saw my works 40 years. Therefore, I was grieved with that generation and said, they always go astray in their heart. There's that heart again. And they have not known my ways. As I swore in my wrath, if they shall enter my rest, ... Look out, brothers, lest there be in any of you a wicked heart of unbelief in falling away from the living Elohim. But encourage one another daily while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened by the deceivableness of sin. For we have become partakers of Messiah if we would hold fast the beginning of our trust firm to the end. While it is said, today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts as in the rebellion. For who having heard rebelled? Was it not all who came out of Mitzrayim, led by Moshe? And with whom was he grieved 40 years? Was it not with those who sinned, whose corpses fell in the wilderness? And to whom did he swear that they would not enter into his rest, but to those who what? Did not obey. So we see that they were unable to enter because of unbelief. Disobedience is straight up a demonstration, emphasis on the demonstration of unbelief that Yahweh is sovereign in your life. Or I'm sorry, is not sovereign. Unbelief that Yahweh is not sovereign in your life and that He's not to be obeyed. All right? But obedience is a demonstration of belief that Yahweh is sovereign in our lives. James chapter 2. Next book over. Page 1175. Chapter 2, we're going to start reading in verse 1. My brothers, do not hold the belief of our Master Yahshua Messiah, the Master of esteem, with partiality. For if there should come into your meeting a man with gold rings and a splendid robe, and there should also come in a poor one dressed in rags, and you pay attention to the one wearing the splendid robe and say to him, you sit here in a good place, and say to the poor one, you stand over there, or sit here by my feet. Have you not discriminated among yourselves and become judges with wicked thoughts? Listen, my beloved brothers, has Elohim not chosen the poor of this world, rich in belief, and heirs of the reign which He promised to those who love Him? But you have shown disrespect towards the poor man. Do not the rich oppress you and drag you into the courts? Do they not blaspheme that good name by which you are called? If you truly accomplish the sovereign law according to the Scripture, you shall love your neighbor as yourself, you do well. But if you show partiality, you commit sin, being found guilty by the Torah as transgressors. For whoever shall guard all the Torah and yet stumble in one point, he's guilty of all. For he who said, do not commit adultery, also said, do not murder. Now, if you do not commit adultery, but you do murder, you have become a transgressor of Torah. So speak, and so do as those who are to be judged by a Torah of freedom. For the judgment is without compassion to the one who has shown no compassion, and compassion boasts over judgment. My brothers, what use is it for anyone to say he has belief but does not have works? The belief is unable to save him. They don't teach that from the pulpits, do they? The belief is unable to save him. And if a brother or sister is naked and in need of daily food, but one of you says to them, go in peace and be warmed and be filled, but you do not give them the bodily needs, what use is it? So also belief, if it does not have works, is in itself dead. But someone might say, you have belief and I have works. Show me your belief without your works, and I shall show you my belief by my works. You believe that Elohim is one, you do well. The demons also believe and shudder. But do you wish to know, O foolish man, that the belief without the works is dead? Was not Abraham our father declared right by works when he offered Yitzhak, his son, on the altar? Do you see that belief was working with his works, and by the works of the belief was perfected? And the Scripture was filled which says, Abraham believed Elohim, and it was reckoned to him for righteousness, and he was called Elohim's friend. You see then, what a man is, that a man is declared right by works and not by belief alone. In the same way was not Rahab the whore also declared right by works when she received the messengers and sent them out another way? For as the body without the spirit is dead, so also belief is dead without the words. So, we see that blah, 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 and bull from our lips is not something that impresses Yahweh. All right? When it comes to Yahweh, if you want to get traction, have belief that shows action. That's right. That ought to be a bumper sticker, shouldn't it? All right? If you want to have traction, have belief that shows action. There's a saying that goes like this. If you can't think your way into better acting, act your way into better thinking. Right? Satan is battling for our minds. When our belief manifests itself into better action, the better action helps to protect and reinforce our belief. It helps to maintain a personal understanding of who we really are as it relates to being a child of Elohim. Right? That's why the shield of belief is a protective device to quench the burning arrows of the wicked one. Right? 2 Corinthians chapter 10. We'll be on page 1123. We're going to start reading verse 3. First Corinthians chapter 10, verse 3. Though we walk in the flesh, we do not fight according to the flesh. For the weapons we fight with are not fleshly, but mighty in Elohim for overthrowing strongholds, overthrowing reasonings. That would be wicked reasonings. And every high matter that exalts itself against the knowledge of Elohim, taking captive. Okay, that sounds like battle talk, doesn't it? Every thought to make it obedient to the Messiah, and being ready to punish all disobedience when your obedience is complete. Take a look at what you are facing. If anyone seems to trust in himself that he is of Messiah, let him reckon again for himself, that as he is of Messiah, so also are we. For even if I should boast somewhat more about our authority, which the Master gave us for building up, and not for overthrowing you, I shall not be put to shame, lest I seem to frighten you away by letters. All right, so as we pick up the shield of belief, let us demonstrate that we know how to use it. Amen? Amen. All right, now, concerning the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Elohim, I remind you what it says in Deuteronomy chapter 6. Let's turn there. Devarim chapter 6. We're going to be on page 192. Yeah. Because we'll start reading in verse 4. Deuteronomy 6 and verse 4. Hear, O Yisrael, Yahweh, our Elohim, Yahweh is one, and you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I'm commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand. Now, we talked in an earlier message about how this passage right here, interestingly, correlates to the armor of Elohim. Right? Today we're talking about the shield of belief and the sword of the Spirit. And those go on what? The hands. All right? They go on your hands, and shall bind them as a sign on your hands. The word of Elohim, right? That buckler, you slide your arm up inside that buckler, and you hold firm to that top strap. And you hold fast to it so that you cover your whole body. And how did the ancients fight with a sword? They would take a strap of leather and they would bind it securely to their hand and their arms so that they would not drop it in the heat of battle. And if it were to fall out of their hand, whether knocked out or whatever, they could quickly recover it and continue on fighting because it was bound to their hand. Right? Do you see what Moshe is telling the people here? Verse 8, and shall bind them as a sign on your hands, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Now, skip down to verse 16. Do not try Yahweh your Elohim as you tried him in Massah. Diligently guard the commands of Yahweh your Elohim and his witnesses and his laws which he has commanded you. The word of Elohim. And you shall do what is right and good in the eyes of Yahweh, that it might be well with you. And you shall go in and possess the good land of which Yahweh swore to your fathers, to drive out all your enemies from before you, as Yahweh has spoken. When your son asks you in the time to come, saying, what is the meaning of the witnesses and the laws and the right rulings which Yahweh our Elohim has commanded you? Then you shall say to your son, we were slaves of Pharaoh in Mitzrayim, and Yahweh brought us out of Mitzrayim with a strong hand. And Yahweh sent signs and wonders great and grievous upon Mitzrayim, upon Pharaoh, and upon all his household before our eyes. And he brought us out from there to bring us in, to give us the land of which he swore to our fathers. And Yahweh commanded us to do all these laws, to fear Yahweh our Elohim, for our good always, to keep us alive as it is today. And it is righteousness for us when we guard to do all this command before Yahweh our Elohim as he has commanded us. All right? And as we've already discussed in previous messages, Satan is an expert swordsman. And without the complete armor of Elohim, he will cut you to pieces. And he's not afraid of you or me. He's just not. Well, you know, what happened to Hawa when she tried to wield the sword of the Spirit without having the complete armor of Elohim? He took her down. And he took Adam down too. And Satan was not afraid to get in a sword of the Spirit or lightsaber fight, if you will, with Yahshua himself. But note well that Yahshua was wearing the complete armor of Elohim. Matthew chapter 4. Matthew chapter 4, we're going to start reading in verse 1. Going to be on page 919. Matthew 4, verse 1. Then Yahshua was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tried by the devil. And after having fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. And the trier came and said to him, if you are the Son of Elohim, command these stones become bread. But he answering said, it has been written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahweh. So Yahshua just pulled the sword of the Spirit right there. Then the devil, verse 5, took him up into the set-apart city, set him on the edge of the set-apart place. And he said to him, if you are the Son of Elohim, throw yourself down. And he pulls out the sword of the Spirit. And he says, for it has been written, he shall command his messengers concerning you, and in their hands they shall bear you up, so that you do not dash your foot against a stone. And Yahshua said to him, it's also been written, you shall not try Yahweh your Elohim. Again the devil took him up on a very high mountain and showed him all the reigns of the world and their esteem, and said to him, all these I shall give you if you fall down and worship me. And then Yahshua said to him, go, Satan, for it has been written, you shall worship Yahweh your Elohim, and him alone you shall serve. Then the devil left him, and see, the messengers came and attended him. Who are the participants in this fight? Yahshua and Hasatan. One-on-one. One-on-one. You see, you can't really fight another's fight. And they cannot fight your fight for you. Yes, we can pray for one another. We can intercede for one another. And we can counsel one another. But you and I have to stand against Satan ourselves. You're not entirely on your own, but it is your test. We have to stand against Satan and fight our own fights. Now, we do this with Yahweh's help, but your battle is your battle. Right? So, let's turn to Luke chapter 4, and I want to show you something that you might find just a little enlightening. I find it interesting, to say the least. This is the same story that we just read about in Matthew. Starting in Luke 4, verse 1. And Yahshua, being filled with a set-apart spirit, returned from the yard where he was immersed, and was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, being tried for 40 days by the devil. You see that? All right. Same story. Verse 3, and the devil said to him, if you are the son of Elohim, command these stones to become bread. Right now, skip down to verse 13. After the sword fight here. And when the devil had ended every trial, he went away from him until what are those next two words? Convenient time. A convenient time. Waiting and watching. See, even after this, Satan was intending to come against Yahshua again. All right? That's the way he is. And that's what he does to us too. And I remind you that what it says, Revelation 12:17, don't have to turn there, just one verse. And the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to fight with the remnant of her seed, those guarding the commands of Elohim, and possessing the witness of Yahshua Messiah. He's going to come after you again and again. Now this next passage we're going to look at, it seems to be a messianic psalm, but I want you to notice how much armor you can spot. Psalm 91, how much armor you can spot, and the similarity between this and Ephesians chapter 6. Psalm 91, Tehillim, page 697. We're going to start reading in verse 1. And we'll start reading verse 1. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High, who abides under the shadow of the Almighty. He is saying of Yahweh, my refuge and my stronghold, my Elohim in whom I trust. That's already starting to sound like defenses, doesn't it? For he delivers you from the snare of the trapper. Does that sound a little similar to the schemes of the devil? From the destructive pestilence. He covers you with his feathers, and under his wings you take refuge. His truth is as a shield and armor. And I remind you that the word of Yahweh is woven throughout the entire armor of Elohim. The breastplate of righteousness, the loins girded in truth, etc. Right? The shield of belief. All right, verse 5. You are not afraid of the dread by night, of the arrow that flies by day, the burning arrows of the wicked one, of the pestilence that walks in darkness, of destruction that ravages at midday. 1,000 fall by your side, and 10,000 to your right hand, but it does not come near you. Only with your eyes you look on and see the reward of the wrong ones, because you have made Yahweh my refuge, the Most High, your dwelling place. No evil befalls you, and a plague does not come near your tent. All right? Let's see if this next part sounds just a little familiar. For he commands his messengers concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They bear you up in their hands, lest you dash your foot against a stone. See, Satan quoted that to tempt Yahshua to jump from the set-apart place, remember? Verse 13, you tread upon lion and cobra, young lion and serpent. You trample underfoot, because he cleaves to me in love. Therefore I deliver him. I set him on high, because he has known my name. And when he calls on me, I answer him. I am with him in distress. I deliver him and esteem him. With long life I satisfy him and show him my deliverance. The helmet of deliverance. Yahshua was wearing the complete armor of Elohim. All right? And that's what we need to put on. Amen? Amen. All right? I want to read about a real-life physical example of how to work for Yahweh. Nehemiah chapter 4. And it's going to be on page, we're going to start reading verse 1 on page 830. Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 1. And it came to be when Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, that he was wroth and highly offended, and mocked the Yehudim. And he spoke before his brothers and the army of Shilmeron, and said, what are these feeble Yehudim doing? Are they going to restore, slaughter, and complete it in a day? Are they going to bring to life the stones from the heaps of rubbish which are burned? And Tobiah, the Ammonite, was beside him, and he said, whatever they build, if a fox should climb on it, he shall break down their stone wall. Hear, O our Elohim, for we have become despised, and turn back their reproach on their own heads, and give them as a prey in a land of captivity. And do not cover over their crookedness, and do not let their sin be blotted out from before you, for they have provoked you before the builders. So we built the wall, and the entire wall was joined together up to half of it, and the people had a heart to work. And it came to be when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabs and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites heard that the wall of Jerusalem was being repaired and the broken places began to be filled, they became very wroth. And all of them conspired together to come to fight against Jerusalem and to do harm to it. But we prayed to our Elohim and set a watch against them day and night because of them. And Yehudah said, the strength of the burden bearer is weakening, and there is so much rubbish that we were unable to build the wall. And our adversary said, let them not know or see it until we come into their midst, and shall slay them causing the work to cease. And it came to be when the Yehudim who dwelt near them came, that they said to us 10 times, from whatever place you turn, they are against us. So I set men behind the lower part of the wall at the openings. I set the people according to their clans with their swords, their spears, and their bows. And I looked and rose up and said to the nobles and to the deputy rulers and the rest of the people, do not be afraid of them. Remember the great and awesome Yahweh, and fight for your brothers, your sons, and your daughters, and your wives, and your houses. And it came to be, when our enemies heard that it was known to us, and that Elohim had brought their counsel to naught, that all of us returned to the wall, and everyone to his work. And it came to be, from that time on, that half of my servants were working in the work, while the other half were holding the spears, the shields, and the bows, and the breastplates. Sounds like armor, doesn't it? And the rulers were behind all the houses of Yehudah who were building on the wall, and those bearing burdens, those loading, working with one hand in the work, and with the other holding a weapon. That's kind of the way we have to go about things, folks. All right. As for the builders, each one had his sword girded at his side as he built. And the one who sounded the ram's horn was beside me. And I said to the nobles and to the deputy rulers and to the rest of the people, the work is great and large, and we are separated far from one another on the wall. In whatever place you hear the sound of the ram's horn, join us there. Our Elohim fights for us. So we labored in the work, and half of them held the spears from the break of day until the stars appeared. At that time I also said to the people, let each man and his servant spend the night in Jerusalem, and they shall be our guard by night and for the work by day. So neither I, nor my brothers, nor my servants, nor the men of the guard who followed me, none of us took off our garments, each one his weapon, even at the water. That is exactly how we fight for the rain. And if you'll notice, they did not merely arm themselves and work, they watched over one another. and protected one another as they worked. We must do the same thing if we're to stand against the schemes of the devil, just as they did. Sometimes we must go it alone, but there is safety in numbers, and we are supposed to be a people. Amen. Amen. Ephesians chapter 6. I'm going to start reading in verse 11 again. Ephesians 6, chapter 6, verse 11. Put on the complete armor of Elohim for you to have the power to stand against the schemes of the devil. Because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, against the world rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual matters of wickedness in the heavenlies. Because of this, take up the complete armor of Elohim, so that you have the power to withstand in the wicked day, and having done all to stand. Stand then, having girded your waist with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having fitted your feet with the preparation of the good news of peace, above all, having taken up the shield of belief with which you shall have the power to quench all the burning arrows of the wicked one. Take also the helmet of deliverance and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Elohim, praying at all times with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, watching in all perseverance and supplication for all the set apart ones. You see, we're watching out for each other. Also for me, that a word might be given to me in the opening of my mouth, to be bold in making known the secret of the good news. We must put on the complete armor of Elohim, covered in His righteousness from head to toe, fighting with the sword and the shield. And do you know why? Yes, to stand against the schemes of the devil, but also because we are swashbucklers for Yahweh. Yahweh 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 bless you and guard you. Yahweh make His face to shine upon you and show favor to you. Yahweh lift up His face upon you and give you His complete contentment.
Hey, hey, and He can make a way. Hey, hey, so humble yourselves and pray and guard His Torah. Obey each day. Hallelujah.